Hello everyone, I'm Emily.
And I'm Scar.
And welcome back to another episode of the Cottage Horse Podcast, where we get whimsical, wild, and whatever else every other Wednesday. We have an exciting episode for you today, so we hope you enjoy. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, everyone.
So, we have faces.
Oh my god. This is new to me. I thought I was just a simulation.
Face reveal.
That's a lie. We face revealed on the TikTok before. And on the Instagram. People know what we look like.
But not the YouTube.
Okay, true. But they might do if they knew us beforehand or have dabbled in our content.
That's true.
But that's not what we're talking about.
No, that's not what we're talking about.
We're talking about my favourite thing. One of my favourite things. FNAF.
Or Five Nights at Freddy's if you're not familiar with it.
Yep. I've been waiting for this. It arrived. The movie arrived. I was sat. I was ready. I was absorbed. I enjoyed.
Yeah. Same. Before we get into it, though, I do just want to say spoilers. There are going to be spoilers in this episode. So if you have not seen the movie yet, first off, what are you doing? Get on that. Second off, you've been warned now, so you cannot get mad at us if we spoil something for you.
Yes. I mean, quick spoiler-free review. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a silly, goofy time. I thought it was funny. I thought it had some good moments of some good scares. And overall, I was like, well done.
Yeah,
clap,
agreed.
Blumhouse. I was like, you did the job. Thumbs up.
No, I agree. I thought it was a great time. I know a lot of people have really controversial or conflicting opinions, but I had a good time. I enjoyed it. I was there for the vibes, and the vibes were had.
Yeah, I think a lot of the criticisms that I've seen, I understand, but I don't see them as negatives, whereas some people do, which is fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and obviously some people are gonna like things more than others. AKA the critics being like, it has no plot, and I'm like, have you heard of the franchise before? There is never a plot, but welcome, I guess. So it's goofy. I loved it. I thought it was so silly and so fun.
Other than the people in my theater being annoying, I had a great time.
Yeah, that's sad. I mean, fortunately, I had a very cool cinema experience. Everyone there was so into it. Everyone was reacting and gasping, and at the end, people were like, oh my god, what's it spelling out the little post credit thing, and everyone was so gassed, and it was so funny. And there was these people behind us who were they were the people behind us were me. I was like, I want to be their friend. Everything they were saying, I was like, I'm having this exact internal thought, and it was 10 out.
Yeah, my theater was just full of children, and I respect that Five Nights at Freddy's is kind of a children's franchise, but kind of not at the same time.
Yeah.
I just think if you're going to bring your young children to see a movie, teach them proper theater etiquette, because they did not have it. There was a lot of talking at full volume about things. There was a lot of they were making comments on stuff. At one of the points where one of the people was running, the kid was like, the exit is right behind you. It's right behind you, dude. And I'm like, this is not your living room. Please stop talking.
Yeah, because I think as well, I mentioned this to you before, but it's there's obviously if I'm taking my child, my non-existent child, to Paw Patrol, I'm not going to necessarily be you need to be completely silent, because I understand there's also going to be other kids there, so there's a little less requirements of having theatre etiquette, because there's it's going to be a bunch of kids. But for this movie, especially for you, because our ratings were different, mine was a 15, so there was if you weren't 15, you ain't getting in. So people were pretty, they know how to handle themselves for the most part, whereas obviously kids don't. And it's I think if you're a parent and you're taking your kid to something where the demographic is probably going to be not strictly just children, there's a little bit of hey, just be mindful, just be cool,
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, though, it was a good time. I also think it was a great length, because too many movies these days are so long. And this one, I think, was an hour 48 minutes, if I recall.
I think so. Yeah, it felt pretty it didn't feel that long either. It was like punchy, and I was like, I appreciate that.
It was a good length, so I liked that too, because we do not need 3-hour movies.
No. Like I was so invested from like the opening credits with like the whole like mini game style thing. I was like, oh my god, and like the soundtrack, I was like they've done it. They know what to do. And like the whole like, I just thought that was such an interesting way of like setting up the scene without telling us everything, because at no point in the film, like it's not until like way over halfway through are we told, hey, there are missing children who are like taken. Like it's implied, but you're not explicitly told it by any of the characters until like way in. But like the first opening like minigame credits is like, you see that happening. You see each of the like kids being taken away. And I'm like, nice. It's like there. It's set it up without being like a character being like, guess what? Kids were stolen. And you're like, what? Are you kidding? It's like,
could you just imagine though, Matthew Lillard just like head peeking on screen, be like, did you see that? Did you see what happened? We took them.
I took those kids. Like, hello.
I kidnapped them.
Because I thought like, in my head, I was like, oh, they're probably just gonna like have it as be like a news thing on in the background, or like an old newspaper. But they were like, they did it well, and I was like, I appreciate that. Like, because you're not gonna have some random character be like, did you hear about these kids who were taken and lost in the 80s? When it's like, you're like, why would you be talking about that stuff? Like, obviously it's important, but like, why would you be bringing this up in conversation organically? But like, it made sense in the moment. But like, you get it, you get the vibes, and I was like, I appreciate that.
Yeah, because do we have an exact year when the movie took place? Like, I was guessing like early 2000s, but like, I don't think we know.
Yeah, I can only imagine that was the case. Because like, I don't think it was explicitly said, but like, it was inferred through like what Mike was saying, and like, I guess through what Vanessa was saying. Like, they're in like, Mike's meant to be like 26, 27 ? Like, so if his brother was taken, you know, when he was like younger, then it makes sense. And obviously Vanessa being a kid in the photograph and now being like, you know, a fully fledged adult, I'm assuming it's at least like 15 to 20 years post events of that initial like incident. But welcome to FNAF, where dates don't matter. It's just vibes in this house.
No, that's fair. It was more just like a curiosity.
Yeah,
if they had ever like explicitly stated.
I don't think it really matters. Like, it's one of those things where like, present day, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, because it doesn't add anything, I guess, apart from like, I guess they can't be using like technology that they wouldn't have, but that's just like, I'm not that like stressed over things like that. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, thank you.
Oh. All right. I have notes, and I know you have notes as well.
I do have some notes.
So do we want to just kind of go through them?
Sure. Okay. Well, my first thing was the minigame intro, because I was like, slay. I thought that was a great vibe. what was I going? Bearing in mind, I like was writing these like immediately. Like, I walked out the cinema and I was immediately at my phone writing notes just so I didn't forget anything. And like in the cast, some of these are very unhinged. My next note was, and this is not in chronological order either, because obviously I was just thinking of things that like came to my head. But when the babysitter gets like cut in half, I was like shook. But the best thing is I whispered to my brother, who I was like watching it with. I whispered to my brother like at the same time as someone behind me whispered it. I was like, was that the bite of 2023? And I was like, yes. I was like, this is exactly the moment I knew I was in the right cinema, because the guy behind me literally went to his friend and was like, was that the bite of 87? I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people said that, like, made that same joke.
I was like, that is insane. I was like, I appreciate the wavelength we all have, the collective hive mind. It's nonsense.
Yeah, no, that's great. That whole sequence was like, whoa.
Yeah, because I think I tried to steer away from like watching anything regarding it. I did end up watching the trailer, like one of the trailers, through Matt Pat watching the trailer and breaking down the trailer. So I never watched it, but I watched him watch it. Because I was interested to see what he had to say. So I knew like of that gang like breaking in, And like he theorized, and I think a lot of people thought that was going to be like the initial setup of, hey, this is the pizzeria and this is why the animatronics are dangerous kind of thing. And this is why we need a security guard. Like, this is why we need to have a security guard, because people are breaking in and being silly, silly people. So here's the setup for Mike to get his job kind of thing. And obviously that wasn't the case. We got a different kind of intro to the severity of the situation, which was like crazy. But I was like, that was like, okay. My other thought, right? I wrote this down as well. And this is like my favorite thing. The cupcake was fucking feral, and I was living for it. When so I tasked you with finding the 3 scenes that made me ascend in the cinema. So one of them was Matt Pat. Like, I was like shooketh. Okay, like, he lied.
I guess
the second one was when the fucking cupcake flew. When it bit his leg, and then it turned, and then it was like on its side because he booted it, and it stood back up and fucking flew. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, that cupcake was honestly scarier than the animatronics at times.
Because so the thing, like, this is like, this means nothing really, but like, you know, here you go, fun fact. But basically, the girl who's like possessing Chica, had a dog, and like people theorize that the dog spirit is in Cupcake because like people think that the dog was called Cupcake, whatever, which is why it's like incredibly feral. And I was like, honestly, yeah, but that Cupcake, the body count, insane. Like, it was carrying the kills. I was like, oh truly my god.
Like, plus you see like the one, like, I don't know what we want to call that little group that broke in, but the one who's like face that it ate, you like see him later, and like it's not even a face anymore. It's just like a lump of flesh at that point.
That was one of my favorite scenes, was like when he's like in the kitchen and you're like, oh my god, like, you know there's a threat, and like he's going to the fridge and you see like Chica walk past through the fan. I was like, oh shit. And then like he opens the fridge and the cupcake's there and he's like, lol, and then it like disappears and he's like, and then I was like, oh my god, and he turns around and it's Chica and the cupcake, and Chica's like, and I was like, like, it's just so stupid, but it's so like effective in what it was trying to do, because they walk so slow. So it's like the most like apart from Foxy, who like yeets down hallways, the rest of them very slow. So like, it's the fact that like Chica was there and was just stood there with the cupcake waiting, was like, I have my friend back and you are screwed. It's like, I'm not gonna do the dirty work, but they will.
I can't imagine what it was like to actually film that movie with those actual animatronics. That would be terrifying. Absolutely unhinged terrifying.
No, I've seen a lot of the behind the scenes, and like, they are also huge. Like, obviously they're huge, but like, they are big, right? Because obviously they have to fit people in. Aside from Foxy, like Foxy's the only one that wasn't an actual animatronic, right? The rest of them were like people in the suits, whatever. Obviously, aside from the cupcake. I mean, maybe there was someone in there, but I doubt it.
Maybe.
So like, that was all fine, but like, behind the scenes when they were getting hugs, I'm like, no, I would not hug that. Like, I would be scared that it would crush me still. Like, even though I know there's a person in it, I'm like, I ain't touching that.
I don't like mascots to begin with. And I know these aren't mascots, but like they are in a way. I don't like anything behind a mask like that. It freaks me out because I can't see their face. And then add into the fact that like obviously they're meant to be these like killer animatronics. I don't care if, you know, I have worked with the man in that suit for 6 years and I know him and he's like a brother to me. Don't touch me, don't look at me, don't be near me, don't breathe in my direction. Please leave me alone.
Yeah, no, they are I'm so glad that they were practical. Like, I knew when Blumhouse took over, I was like, okay, good, because they like to do stuff like that. And when they were like, yeah, we just built the animatronics, I was like, you what now? I was like, uh-huh. And they're like, here they are, just on set. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I thought maybe some of it would have been CGI potentially, but like, I'm glad it wasn't, because I thought it was paid off. But I was like, where are they going? Where are they keeping them now? Like,
well, so that's kind of the other thing. It's almost like a Jurassic Park moment where people are like, we should try and grow dinosaurs. And it's like, we have like 6 movies that tell us why it's a bad idea. And then Blumhouse is like, we made the FNAF animatronics. Like, we have multiple games that tell us why you should not have done that.
And now
then they do it anyway.
And now they're going to be in storage somewhere. And I'm like,
are they?
I'm like, because especially all the behind the scenes as well, is like Foxy's mouth just like yapping, and I'm like, nah. I'm like, that is a recipe for disaster. I ain't going anywhere near that boy.
And there is actually a full Foxy suit that someone can wear.
No. I just listen,
I saw a behind the scenes thing.
They are not. They are like, they look so goofy, like when they aren't like in the film. Like they kind of are goofy, but they're meant to be goofy because like they're mascots for kids. Like they're meant to kind of just be a bit silly. Like, so they do kind of look a bit silly. But then like you watch them, like you watch Bonnie like assault someone in a cupboard, and you're like, oh, never mind.
Also, like whenever Chica like glares and her eyes like narrow,
the squint,
that's so scary.
All the squinting that they do, like the Bonnie side eye, I was like, animatronic side eye. Like, what?
The sass.
I was like, hello. And like there was one, and it was like Freddy like throwing his head back laughing, and I was like, nah, this is like really off-putting. I was like, I don't like this. Do not laugh, sir.
Well, and like especially if you think about like they're gonna make other ones if they make future movies, which at this point pretty sure they plan to do.
Because listen, like they're probably gonna make at least a sequel, but it seems like they're going off the Silver Eyes book trilogy. Like a lot of the scenes that they've taken seem to be more inferred from there than the games, which is fine. They're all kind of parallels to each other anyway. I'm like, whatever. I'm here for a good time, not a lore time. Like there isn't even really lore. It's all just nonsense. Like, let's be real. It's all just like, hey, we think this happened, and we're like, okay, cool. So I'm like, I don't know. But there's like, if they make a baby animatronic, like baby's meant to be like 7'2". She's fucking huge, and she has a scooper inside her stomach. If they make that with the actual scooper, dead,
no,
deceased, like crucify me in the cinema. Like, excuse me, that would be horrible. That would be nightmarish. Like, no. But also yes, but also no.
Right. It's kind of like, you know, like how they have like the Universal like Hollywood Horror Nights. They need to bring those. Bring the animatronics.
No, because people would be daft. Like I don't trust the public. Like I don't trust the public.
That's very fair.
Like I don't trust people, which sounds bad, but like I don't know, people be crazy, and I think, but I'd also really like that. I think there's ways to do it in a controlled environment that would work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought like all the like subtlety of this, like, because it wasn't gory, and it wasn't going to be gory anyway. People like, it wasn't scary, and I was like, okay, that's fine. But like the games are jump scary. They aren't like intense.
Yeah.
Like they're pretty like, they're meant to be more of like a thriller kind of thing, which is what the movie was doing, and I thought it did it very effectively. Like I was like alarmed when she got cut in half, even though it was implied for a shadow. I was like, that is horrific. Are you kidding?
They did that really well. And also, all 3 Balloon Boy jump scares got me.
That first one in the locker, I was like, they're gonna keep doing this now. I was like, oh no. But that was really good. Like, because it was just dumb. Because it would like a half an hour would pass, and you'd be like, oh, I'm safe, and you'd be reinvested, and then it would be there on the car seat, and I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
No way. I did find that really funny though. It was just simple things like that where you're like, this is good. Like, it's very effective. The whole like, it's me in the mirror, I was like, oh my god, Easter egg.
Also, Foxy's little like song that he sings as he's like stalking people.
Oh, Foxy is like genuinely the scariest. Like I know, because again, like not only fastest, like will like run down a corridor, which is just like too scary anyway, but like he ain't even like trying to be subtle. Like he's genuinely coming for you when he does that,
and he knows you can't escape.
Yeah, when I first heard that dum 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 dum, I was like, bye. Nice to know you. My favorite bit, like my favorite like scary moment was when Chica puts the cupcake in the vent because he's in the camera footage, and she bends down and puts it. Because I was like,
and then they're just staring at the camera, like waiting for him to realize he's screwed.
I was like, that is one of the best things because it's so silly. Like, it looks so dumb. But then I'm also like, if you're watching that security feed footage and you can then hear above you the blood, like, you can hear the bloody scuttling of this thing. Ew. Like, ew. No. I was like, that is not cool.
Too much. Too much.
I was like, no. I'd have been out there in day one. Like,
oh yeah.
Like,
Here's the
Vanessa
thing,
would have showed up. Vanessa would have showed up, pressed that Showtime button, and I've been like, Showtime, I'm out.
It's also like, they don't really ever explain why they need a security guard. So I would have been like, no. Why would I go sit in an abandoned building? If someone breaks in, it's an abandoned building, not my problem.
Yeah.
Like, just get better locks.
Because that's like one of the things in like, this has like been like a recent thing that people are like getting their heads around, is like, yes, there is an element of like, why do you need a security guard for buildings? Like, because people used to think that the pizzerias that like you were working at the games were still like active, and I'm like, no, they are like abandoned. Like, there's a security guard there because they're trying to stop people from breaking in and like damaging the animatronics, which is still like in storage there. It's like, that's why they need a security guard. But like, there's also an element of like, but clearly the security guard's there for ulterior motives, and obviously in the game, Mike's like, hey, Dad, don't be a dickhead.
Like, no, obviously I get it, like, in the plot, but like, if it was me being presented with that job, I'd be like, buy a video doorbell camera. Also, what are you talking about?
Also, like, the whole like thing of like, I have two like things where I'm like, this doesn't make sense in my head.
Okay.
One, when the security, like the group break in and they break in during the day, like, you see Josh Hutcherson leave the premises and he goes, I found a way in. We already know that there's cameras outside the building, right? It gets told to us at some other point. So I'm like, Vanessa shows up and is like, don't sleep on the job, lock the door. And I'm like, but you can just check the footage and see that they broke in after 6 a.m. when he went home.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's his job to make sure the place is locked up. I get that. He would still be liable, but it's not like they broke in during the night where he was like on shift actively.
I think it was supposed to be implied that he didn't lock a door, that's why he's liable. So even if it happened after 6 a.m., he didn't do his due diligence of locking up.
Yeah, it does make sense, but I feel like it could have been solved by like checking the cameras and being like, hey, they came through like a side door, not the main door. But whatever. That's a very minor thing, and it's so stupid anyway that I'm like, I don't care. Honestly.
Yeah.
The other thing is the aunt just being dead.
Where did she go? What happened to her? No one acknowledged it.
She's in their house. How does Mike keep Abby when their dead aunt is on the floor?
I saw someone say maybe she was actually taken to a hospital, like she wasn't dead, and she was just knocked out. She was taken to a hospital.
But still,
and like that's part of that. But then, like, if she starts babbling about like an animatronic bear attacking her, she's not going to get custody of Abby. So, like, I guess that makes sense. But honestly, her whole storyline was really stupid to me. Like, that's probably my least favorite part of the movie. I get it. They had to have some conflict of, like, Mike with Abby, and, like, why does he need to take this job so desperately? Oh, he needs it to keep Abby. So I get it. But, like, her whole, like, villain story was just kind of silly. Like, it was
goofy.
It was goofy. And, like, I get the movie's meant to be a little bit silly, but I was like, okay, even this is a little bit too, like, just ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was, like, not thought out. And I'm like, but at the end of the day, I'm also just like, it's not that deep. Like it is a bit like, okay, it feels unnecessary, but like you said, they have to provide a purpose for Mike being there because they've changed the familial relationships between him and William Afton. He is no longer his son. He is maybe Henry's son. Like,
that's the biggest theory I've seen.
Yeah, potentially Henry's son. He looks like the same guy who was like working on one of the animatronics. Like, that would make sense to me. I could understand that. But I would be interested to see what they do moving forward. But like, obviously they have to give him a purpose to be there if he's not connected to William Afton. So that makes sense in that eyes. My favorite thing was like like like, obviously we all knew that Matthew Lillard was like playing the villain, but like this Steve Raglan character was so bad at being not suspicious.
Right?
He's like, Michael, he's like, let's get some coffee. And then he's like, I have a job for you. And I'm like, sir.
Also, I do find it very interesting. We know Mike's last name. They never said it in the movie. So I do think that's going to come into picture later. He starts saying his last name, realize it, and then like stops. And whether he realizes, oh, that's Henry's son, whether he makes the connection of, oh, that's Garrett's brother, like, we won't know until later, but they never actually say his last name.
Yeah, so I think he knows it's he knows it's Garrett's brother, because we get that kind of like dialogue between him and Vanessa later on, where he's like, your job was to keep him here and make sure he doesn't get too close, and if he did, you were meant to like kill him, kind of thing. So clearly William knew who Mike was on some level. But yeah, I do think it's interesting. I think also it's like when they kept not saying his last name, I'm like there's a bigger picture there, obviously. Like, you don't purposely like. There were so many points where like Vanessa was introducing herself, and you're like, and he was just like, Mike, or like, I'm Mike, and you're like, who? Like, Michael, who? You don't just say that to people, like, especially if someone gives you their first and last name. You're not just like, hi, I'm Mike. You're like, hello?
It's also, okay, Vanessa. So, I don't know where I saw this, but I swear I saw her last name as Vanessa Afton when I like looked up the cast. So I was like, that's silly. That's a spoiler that you like see that. I then, obviously she introduced herself in the movie as Vanessa Shelley, I think is the last name she used. Then I looked up the cast again another time, and now it's listed as Vanessa Morgan. And I'm like, where did Morgan come in? Because I could see if they're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't list this as Vanessa Afton.
Yeah.
We should list this as something else. But then why didn't they go Vanessa Shelley?
Interesting.
So very odd maybe there, I thought.
Maybe that's her cop name. Maybe she has like 5 names.
She has 6 aliases. Yeah. But they're all Vanessa.
My favorite thing was like when she like shows up, I'm like, why are you here? Like I was like immediately like on guard, because I was like, why are you here, bestie? Like, you like, I was like, okay. And then when like we were slowly getting to know her, I was like either her sibling was also one of the kids that was like munched, or like there's something bigger going on. And then like finally we start to like get the seeds, and I was like, oh my god, it's her dad. I was like, we're gonna get the reveal. And then when she passed that fucking photograph with the fucking little plate, I was like, you're kidding. I was like, oh my god.
See, I feel like I had it figured out from the beginning, and I don't 100% know why. It wasn't also, like, I saw a TikTok was like, this is the lore that you need to know before you go in to see the FNAF movie. And I think Vanessa got mentioned at some point.
Yeah, Vanessa's like, so in the games, again, like in the games, Vanessa is a character that's introduced in Security Breach. She is a security guard. And she is influenced by William Afton's AI persona called Glitch Trap, because basically Mr. Afton says, oh my god, I need to make sure that I'm permanent, like fully permanent, and I want to have my little followers. And he goes, I'm going to inject myself into a computer.
Why wouldn't you?
So he becomes like Glitch Trap, because he's Spring Trap, because he's in a Spring Bonnie suit. Right. So he's Spring Trap, and then he's Burnt Trap when he gets burnt at one point. But then he's like, I am always come back because the man never dies. And you're like, die. And now he's like, I can't die, I'm AI. So he like influences Vanessa, and like Vanessa is like Vanny, Vanessa Bunny. Yeah. And she like, it'd be crazy. Like that. And so she's like not even, well, like it's also potentially like rumored that she's meant to be like a part of the family tree, but like also people were like angry at that because of like eye color. And I'm like, bitch, there was a point we were counting toes. Eye color is nothing. Like, let's be real. Like, it's all a bit all over the place with that. Like, people are like, oh my god, she's meant to be like Elizabeth, and people are like, no, she's not. And it's like a whole crazy thing. But yeah, like originally she has no real connection to William, and they were like, hey, no. Uno reverse. She does.
That's fair. I agree that I thought maybe she was like one of the like siblings of the missing kids or something.
Yeah.
But she also was really bad at not being suspicious.
I know, yeah. Yeah.
Apparently that runs in the family.
But I think honestly, for her, that made sense because she's trying to make Mike off-put from the job, right?
That's
like,
true.
The whole point is I want him to be here because they wanted to like take Abby potentially, or like I don't know, William was just having a goofy little time, just wanted to traumatize Mike, I guess, like goofy things with the fam. So like that was the whole thing. But like obviously if he finds out too much, which obviously he ended up connecting the dots, then it was like a bad thing. So it was like keep him tethered but like far away. So her being a bit like strange is like not weird, but like some of the stuff I'm like, she was like, oh yeah, I know the first aid kit, and I was like, hello, why?
Why do
And
you
then
know
Mike's
this?
like, tell me more, and she's like, no. Like, you can't do that. His sister's like dying, or like it's gonna
Right.
be like kidnapped, and she's there like, I can't tell you. I'm like, I swear to God. I was like, there was a moment in the film where I was like, I was convinced there was a moment in the film where like Mike was talking and she was like gonna turn around and like just kiss him, and I was like, I swear to God, if they try and like shut him up via like a romance plot of him being like they are now together, I was gonna like flip my shit. That would have been my moment where I left the cinema. I would have been like, no.
No, that's fair. That's
But
fair.
I was like, But it worked out in the end. I was like, oops. And then she gets stabbed.
But
Family
she's
bonding.
alive.
Family bonding. Choked and stabbed by dad. We love that.
Which, how is she alive? Like, I know stab wounds are not the worst, most fatal thing, but also I feel like with where she got stabbed and how long it would have taken to get her help, and I know she's like in a coma or whatever, but
Yeah.
I'm just like,
it depends. Well, people said, and this is a theory, but people said that like clearly she was already like affiliated, like obviously she's affiliated with William, but like she was already like influenced by William, like this whole like weird pact they had going on with him being like, you know what you're supposed to do kind of thing, and like they and like the animatronics knowing who she is and stuff like that, like so people said that like maybe her being in a coma, she's gonna forget everything that happened, and like now she's gonna like, this is where she turns into like Vanny, like evil Vanessa, where she's now going to be like a part of the villain story because she's not going to remember, which I think would be interesting, because I think that'd be interesting. I could see that being the case where she's still like influenced by William and doesn't really recall the events of the film, potentially. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's all a bit up in the air at this point, so who knows?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see like where they take the rest of the plot, because I've also seen people say that like Abby is obviously an anagram for baby, so like is that where that's going?
I could definitely see Abby being scooped as Elizabeth Afton. No, okay, that sounds bananas.
Sorry, just the way you say that. I could see her being scooped.
Well, like you said, she's an anagram for baby. I also just like, no offense to her, a fictional character, but like there ain't no way she's surviving the franchise.
Oh no.
No. Like, she's dying. Like, I'm sorry. Like, Michael's siblings all die, so he dies. He becomes a fucking weird zomboid thing. Like, the family are just decrepit. Like,
yeah,
they're all just dead and possessing bots. So yeah, I could, because also she says that thing at the end of the film, which I think is a real tell of her being like, can we go see my friends again? So clearly she's still attached to the animatronics, which I understand, right? Like, I understand from her perspective why she still would be attached, because again, it's like that kid-like bond. So I could definitely see the potential of there being a baby animatronic which has a scooper. She then becomes like enamored with it, and baby's like meant to be that kind of animatronic, and like she gives out ice cream in her scooper, and like, oopsies, Abby's ice cream. Oopsie. No.
Oopsie
and then
daisy.
Mike's like, my sister got scooped.
I hope that's the exact line.
My sister was a witch, bro. Like, that energy. I could see that being the case. But like, I can see that, because I think she's gonna die. Like, unfortunately, I don't see her living, which is sad, because I like her. I thought she was a fun time. She was goofy. Yeah. She likes her little thoughts, and I was like, slay. She loves the drawing. Iconic.
I also like, it was such a kid moment when the aunt shows up and she's like, I hate you, and then she scribbles his face out of all of the pictures. Yeah. I was like, that's such a little kid thing to do.
But it was so sad though as well, because like when he has that like heart to heart with her teacher, when he's like, oh, she doesn't talk to me, and the teacher's like, yeah, but they tell stories through like pictures, and who's at the center of the pictures all the time? And he's like, me. And I was like, that's so cute. Like, it's so sweet. I was like, oh, like, they really portrayed that like sibling bond in a really good way, because it is going to be unhealthy. Like, they're both still obviously traumatized, and like when you have an adult who's trying to take care of a younger sibling who's like still actively grieving, like, that's really intense. And I thought they did that really well, because they like, again, they like weaved the goofiness with the seriousness really well, because it could have been just very like dry and dark, and you would have been like, oh, but like it was still like dumb.
Yeah, it was
in the
campy.
best
It was
way.
campy in a really
It
good
was,
way.
yeah, it was like, listen, like I don't like I mentioned to you all these like memes where it was like people gonna walk out the cinema if it's like we are FNAF, like friends never like whatever, like if they like Freddy go left, Chica go right kind of thing. But when the fort scene happened, I was like, this is what people were talking about. But I thought it worked.
I will defend the fort scene because they are ghosts of children. First off, so they are still kids. Second off, they're trying to earn Abby's trust. Yes. Abby likes to build forts. So they're like, hell yeah, we're going to build a fort with this little girl because we want her to like us. Yeah. So like, was the fort scene silly? Yes. But when you think about it in the context of the whole movie, it's actually perfect. It might be one of the best scenes.
I agree. I thought like, it is a bit silly. Like it is a bit daft. You're like, okay. Like then when Bonnie falls backwards after hitting the table. And then like, oh,
I saw a TikTok where it was like audio from the game where it's like, the animatronics are a bit quirky.
That's probably my favorite scene because it's so dumb. Like I'm like, yes, he really lifted this table up and then was like, I'm done. Like
thumbs up.
Yeah, I know. Like, Bonnie, are you okay? Ding. Yeah, I thought that scene was like, because I really like that because I think this is like a thing that's been like talked about more as well, but like people forget, like it's so easy to forget that the games are actually like the like story of the games are like really dark. Like kids were kidnapped and murdered and stuffed into animatronics to ever be to ever be stuck there, trapped, and with the antagonist who killed them to be still on the loose and active in their place of rest, right? Like, yeah, it's really horrific. And like at Custom Night, the game is the only time where we really see like this kind of backlash between like Afton and the animatronics. But I'm like, it's horrific, and it's like I thought the way that they dealt with all the like kids, and like I really like the scene where like you had the kid who's Foxy, like Fritz, and he's like there, and then he goes behind the curtain, and then Foxy comes out. I was like, I really like the interchanging between using the kids for like Abby's perspective and then using the animatronics for like the adults' perspective, because also it's already like pretty much, I guess, canon that like the animatronics are pretty like nothing around adults, but like they're good with children, but with adults they just kind of stare because they're like So like I like that we have that. Like it gives a little bit more like you have more sympathy towards these things. It provides a little bit more like human elements to it, because it's really easy to be like, hey, they're like killer bots, but actually it's a little bit deeper than that. They have feelings.
I will. Also, this is kind of another topic, but I just thought about this. Of like when Vanessa's talking about like, oh, when the 5 kids went missing, they searched every inch of this place, but then he put them the one place they'll never look, the suits. And I'm like, why wouldn't they check the suits? Like,
I mean, I guess like why? Like, I guess the feeling is why would you put children in a suit? Like, I guess
but
like
if they went missing and like they didn't leave the building and they must be somewhere in the building, why wouldn't you check everywhere?
I guess the thought is like potentially you don't know that they didn't leave the building. Like, I guess it's like, okay, because I think there's an element as well, like of like, I obviously at that period of time when this is occurring, surveillance and like
that's
people,
also true. It is like the
people
80s.
Looking like, because also like like just in general, like again, I'm not like generalizing people here, but like in general, like kids were not kept under the same watch by like people in general. Like that's like,
fair.
Like everyone, like when that scene where like Mike's in the mall and then like he sees that kid and then the dad like comes along and then he like obviously beats the shit out of him. No one in that mall is even batting an eyelid, right? Like no one in that mall is even like fussed about this child. But like I would like to think in modern day potentially you would have bystanders potentially like go up to said child and like check, or at least other people would be like monitoring the situation, but no one else was like even involved, because why would you be? Because it's just normal to see kids just like hanging out, you know? Like, no, that's the purpose of taking them, like I think also like the purpose of taking them to Freddy's is like, hey, we're gonna have some pizza and you're gonna like hang out in the ball pit and we're gonna sit here and just like vibe kind of thing. Like, so I think there's an element of, also I think the police were just dumb. Like Like,
That's also
also
fair.
because also I feel like as well, like if you're the police officers at that time and you're thinking, hey, this is really strange. Like a bunch of kids keep going missing at this one location. Why are you not like asking the owners, like, hey, do you potentially know something? Like, are there any like back entrances? Could we have a map of the place? Like, even mini things like that. They did not even bat an eyelid at like Afton and like / Henry. They just like vibe. And I'm like, the only person who is suspicious of anyone is Henry. Henry's like, yo, William's a bit strange. And I'm like, tell someone. What do you mean he's a bit strange? Like, what the fuck? It's like, yeah, he keeps like building shit that I didn't want him to build, kind of thing. And I'm like, hello?
Red flag.
And he's like, yeah, I don't use, because they both have like, the theory is like, he has the spring Bonnie suit, and then like, and Henry had a suit that he used to wear like in the early days before like they built like the fully fledged working animatronics, so that's why William still uses that like spring lock suit kind of thing, but like Henry doesn't use it anymore because there's no need to use it because they have animatronics, so they don't need to be mascots. But like I'm pretty sure, like I don't know if it's mentioned in the books, but like Henry even like nods to the fact that William still uses the suit, and I'm like, why? You've even said there's no like why is this man wearing the suit then? Like, hello?
He's just really passionate about his work.
I know. He is. Like, he tries to put his child back together. Like, man is a family man, just a little bit wonky.
Yeah.
He's just a bit wonky. Man is like, I will kill kids, but not my own. I hate kids, but my own. But oopsies.
It's like that meme about like anyone, or no one can bully my sibling but me.
But me, yeah, no. Yeah.
So I can murder any kid, but you cannot hurt mine.
Because he's like distressed when like Elizabeth gets scooped. And I'm like,
yeah.
And obviously you would be, right? You built something and then your kid gets eaten by it. You would be a little bit distressed. And then your other kid shoves your other kid's head into an animatronic and gets bitten. I would be like, but then as a parent, I'd be like, maybe this job is not a good idea anymore. maybe I should
Perhaps.
not build. Like, I'd be like, okay, maybe my work isn't contributing the same way to society as I wish that it would. But he went, no, I'm gonna double down. And we're like, why? But hey, the family's all together.
Yeah.
They're all there.
That's all that matters.
We have decrepit Springtrap, we have Ballora, we have Baby, we have Zombie Mike, Crying Child, like, pop off, I guess. Family reunion.
Yeah. I hope we get Ballora in the movies. I love her.
She is, like, her singing as well is, like, so unsettling. Like, when she sings, like, all, like, the empty halls and stuff, I'm like, oh. Yeah, there's so much potential for this, like, franchise to do that I'm, like, excited for. I think as long as it gets, like, good reception, which it is getting from the fans anyway, they'll continue to do it as long as, like, Scott's on board for it. Because again, I think people forget, like, a lot of people who are like criticizing things, I'm like, Scott wrote this, like, he knows what he wants this to tell, and he clearly didn't want it to tell the story. The man's not going to sit down and tell us the lore. Like, yeah, why would he? And like, he's just trying to be like, hey, here's a different interpretation of the story that we have, and have a good time with it. And I was like, yes, I did, thank you. I ate it up. I was like, I ate that up. Thank you. And the casting? Chef's kiss.
So good. However, could have used more Matthew Lillard. Obviously, I know.
Yeah.
That's the point. But his screen time, so minimal.
Yeah. That was true. I also thought as well, like, it was really interesting. I don't know if we'll get this, maybe we might get it at some point, but I potentially thought that, like, that scene where, like, Vanessa's dying on the floor and Abby's like, picture time, and she's like drawing. Actually, the best part of the film is when, like, the power goes out, right? Like Josh Hutcherson's just like running down the halls. Abby's like scribbling on the floor. Vanessa's dying, and we're like, oh my god! And then William Afton's just stood there being like, what are you doing? I'm like, you're meant to be a villain. Why aren't you killing this kid? Like, listen, I'm glad Abby didn't die, but you're telling me Mr. William Afton watched this kid draw on the floor and stood there like, what are you doing? Like,
Also, it was so dramatic the way she like rips the one picture down and like slaps the other one up.
Spotlight comes on in it. That was my favorite part. Because she like also, where did she get this? Like, she like pulls a thumbtack like from her belongings. I'm like, were you carrying these around? Like, what were you doing? And then she's like, puts it on the wall. At the moment that Mike flips the switch back on, and then he's like, no, and all the animatronics are like, dun dun. I thought in that moment we were gonna get like flashbacks to the kids being killed, and I'm glad we didn't, because I think that would have been like horrific. But I thought that's what we were gonna get, like in their eyes, like a little like ding. Because I'm surprised we didn't get flashbacks. Like, the only flashbacks we got were the dream stuff, which I thought was a really good way of providing that exposition without Mike being like, I'm sad my brother died. Because there's ways to do exposition correctly, and there's ways to do it wrong, and I think they did it well.
I hope we find out what actually happened to Garrett. Like, yes, we know he was kidnapped. Yes, we know he died. But, like, well, is he possessing something? I know some people think he might be the puppet. So
yeah. Well, basically, it's very much like Lee going to be the puppet, and I think I like that because the puppet is like Charlie, which is Henry's daughter in the games, and she gets locked outside the building, and then William's like, I'm going to murder you. Which is very sad. But like that's like whole mini game is like Midnight Motorist, which is what one of the guy whose face gets munched by the cupcake is wearing. And he gets taken in a car. Like, so it kind of makes sense that would be the way. And I also like that because it would make sense for him to have the protector role, because I quite like that, because that would make sense for the storyline and like Mike's like arc and stuff. Because also there was a thing, and like I don't know if it's true, I'd have to watch it again, but like there's a scene where like Chica's like in the frame, and like in the background you can see eyes, and people are like, it's the puppet when they've like brightened it up, but like I don't know for sure.
Yes, I have heard that as well, and I think I am going to sit down and watch it again.
Yeah,
because it's on Peacock.
It is, yes. So stream it if you can't watch it at cinema.
Stream.
Yeah, but I thought that was really interesting. There's so much like mini things, like there's like loads of Easter eggs, like the there's like Sparky the dog like suit, there's the like other Springlock suit, which is like a nod to the books that like Vanessa puts this like broom in and it gets like eaten. There's
the
like
way
loads
like
of things like that.
Fox and stuff are written on the chalkboard at the school.
I thought that was so
I caught that
cool.
myself, and I was really proud of that, because as soon as it panned out, I was like, what are we trying to read?
Yes,
like, there's something here.
I was like, why are we doing a wide shot when they're talking? So it's like something significant here. Yeah, I really like that as well. I thought it was interesting as well, like, we don't know the kids. Like, we don't know their names. Like, obviously, I'm assuming they're, like, one for the games, but they don't have to be. So, like, but that's also interesting because, like, we're still missing a lot of their, like, backstory, per se. Like, we don't know who was first. Like, you know, we don't know that kind of thing. We don't know why. We don't know what. It's, like, implied, but it's not told. So there's, like, so much more they can do. If we do get Henry, I imagine he's going to deliver, like, a bloody heartbreaking monologue that he always does, because, damn. Like, in the games, he delivers, like, the saddest thing ever. And I'm like, who gave you the right? Who gave you the right to say this? It's really sad. So yeah, I think that'd be really interesting. I think we're definitely going to get Henry, or the equivalent of Henry of some regard. It would not be surprising if it is Mike's dad.
I definitely feel like that's what they're setting up.
Yeah, or potentially like related somehow still. Maybe not a dad. Who knows? But I think that would be. But then I guess would it make sense because because William does kill Charlie, who is Henry's kid. So yeah, killing Garrett would make sense out of like a fit of revenge. So it would match up. It would match up.
Yeah, from what I've seen, like, it does match up, because also, like, Mike says something about, like, oh, my mom died a few years ago, and then my dad, like, couldn't handle it, which also, like, lines up with the fact that Henry committed suicide. So, like, there's a lot of, like, little nods that they're throwing out there.
It definitely does. It definitely does work. So I think that would be fine. I also thought at one point, which was, like, such a, like, this is how my brain is, like, rotted. You can tell how much, like, rotting has gone on. I thought at a moment, like, when, like, Mike and Vanessa were talking, and he's like, there's something you're not telling me. I deadass thought she was going to turn out and be like, I'm an animatronic. And I was like, no. Like, because this is a thing. There's real, like, life people animatronics.
No, that's fair.
Like, And I was like, if she turns around and says, I'm an animatronic, I'm going to lose my shit. Fortunately, she didn't. But I was like, oh no. Like, did she die as a kid? And like, because that's the thing. Like, it's like, oh, I'm going to build. But Charlie dies, and then she gets built into like different versions of. Oh, it's so bonkers. Like, there's like like every adult like stage of life has a animatronic that's like real, like can cry, like has a boyfriend at some points, like it's like a fully fledged like being. So I was like, is she gonna turn around and be like? But then to be fair, in the books, she's not aware. She becomes aware that she's an animatronic, but like way late on, and she's like, oh, lol. But like, so maybe she wouldn't be aware. But I was like, I swear to God, if she turns around and says that, I'm going to scream. But it's like silly things like that where it's like, this is the brain rot that some people are on, where it's like you see the silliest little thing and you're like, oh my God, it means this.
Yeah.
And it's like it definitely doesn't. I was looking at all the arcade machines, like, is there a secret? I don't think there was. But I was looking.
I do like that they did a little nod to Scream though.
I love that. That made me very happy when he was like, cha-ching! I was like, oh, he did the thing.
He did the thing.
Yeah, I thought that was
okay,
cool.
So was that the third scene you were shook with? Because otherwise I have a guess what the third scene was.
Have a guess.
Was it when Josh Hutcherson was just like pummeling that dad in the fountain and you just get like first person view of his face? Because I was like, oh, no, we're just jumping into it.
That was like the most horrific scene in the film.
It was
like
intense.
That, and they're like, and like the babysitter getting like cut in half.
Yeah.
No,
like, it was kind of like a casual, like campy movie up until that moment, and then all of a sudden he's just like pummeling into this guy, and I'm like, hello.
But I really like that. That was a really good way of introducing his trauma that he has around like kids.
Yes,
like kids being neglected. Like he's clearly like super stressed about that, which I think is obviously important. No, that wasn't the scene. The three scenes were that part obviously.
Yes.
The cupcake flying.
Yes.
Yeah, and then it was the fort scene because I just thought it was like.
Oh, okay.
It was specifically when like they're all looking up, like at the stars, and then she's like, "It's gonna rain soon." I was like, "Be for real."
Little kumbaya moment.
She was like, "It's gonna rain soon," and Vanessa's like, "I'll get a tarp." I'm like,
"Guess we need a roof."
I was like, "Go home." That was like the only moment where I was like, I had an eye roll when Abby said it's gonna rain soon. I was like, their legs are hanging out the fort, bitch. They're gonna be electrocuted. Like, what do you mean it's gonna rain soon? I like to think that the animatronics in that moment were like, is she for real as a roof? like
Listen, they're trying to kidnap this child, so they're gonna go along with whatever she says.
It was in the fact that like Vanessa goes off and Josh is like, oh, I'll come with you, and I was like, oh no, like is this like a romance thing? Like ew. And then he goes like, don't forget to ask. Like the animatronics can't hear him whispering, don't forget to ask. It's like being subtle. Like I know he doesn't know that they can hear, but like I'm like, dude, that was quite silly.
Also, I really like that he like. After like that first night of kind of chaos, he's just completely on board. He's like, okay, so these animatronics, ghost children, I need you to figure out if they know what happened to our dead brother that you had like no relationship with because you would have been way too young or not existent at this time. Well, so can you do that?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like in the scenes of the flashbacks, like Abby's not there, right? And she's meant to be like, how old? Like 10?
8?
8, 10? So like, she was clearly not alive.
Yeah.
So yeah, but like I think the moment where it sinks in for Mike and like it sunk in for me that like there's a bigger connection is when she has drawn the picture of Garrett being taken in the car. I was like, are you kidding? We have creepy children. Like don't get me wrong, we already had creepy children in the franchise, but I was like, oh my God, she a creepy child.
I just think it's funny though that he's just like, okay, great, ghost children, cool, got it. Can you just figure out what happened to our dead brother? Do not care about them. Can you just focus on that?
To be fair, one of the other scariest scenes in the film was when Mike like falls asleep and like Abby's there and then he wakes up and she's not in the fort and we can hear her screaming and I was like,
yes.
I genuinely thought that was going to be the bite of 2023. Like I thought we were going to walk in and her head was going to be in an animatronic and I was like,
that's fair.
And
he was also
that was like
go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just like traumatized by that.
Yeah. The other part, like, when he's in, like, his dream and, like, all of the children are, like, taking turns, like, knifing him, I was like, I don't like this.
No, that was really intense.
That was stressful.
Yeah, I was like, no. But that was also the funny thing was, like, when she's, like, screaming and she's like, don't worry, they're just tickling me. And, like, the zoom in on Josh Hutcherson's face where he looks like he's going to, like, shit himself. I was like, same. I'd be picking up that girl and running. I'd be moving house. I'd be out of the country. I would be gone. I'm like, how can they tickle? Have you seen the size of their fingers? What are they doing? Smacking you? Like, how do they have the dexterity to tickle you? How?
Good point, because they just, like, can basically do this.
They just have this! Like, we can see Bonnie does a thumbs up, but that's because clearly the thumb is, like, slightly detached. But, like, in all the other things where, like, they have, when she, like, high-fives them all, like, you see Chica's hand turn, and it's just, like, a flat nip.
That is a good point.
Obviously, in Abby's head, they're kids tickling her, not the animatronic.
Oh, okay,
so,
yeah.
I guess that makes sense, but, like, I wish we kind of saw more of that scene from, like, Josh's perspective, because what was the tickling looking like? Like,
right. Well, you couldn't really see anything because they were all surrounding her. Like, she was in the middle of, like, a circle. Yeah.
Also, how is Foxy tickling you? He has a hook for a hand. And Chica has a cupcake.
Only a cupcake? She can put it down.
No, I know, but, like, I don't know. I feel like Carl would want to be in on the tickle fight.
Munch, 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 munch.
I loved him.
Yes.
He's my favourite. I want to see more Carl in the future, please.
I saw behind the scenes of, like, them giving the cupcake to the person, like, in the Chica suit, and Chica was like, oh, it's my cupcake. And I'm just like, this is unsettling.
It's quite cute, though. It is. The fact that she has a third hand. Like, because obviously she has a hand where she holds the cupcake and a hand where she just has, like, a hand. So, like, when she gets handed it, she has 3 arms. And I'm like, ew. No.
Yeah.
Like, no. The other thing I want to say is the whole, like, ending sequence with, like, William getting, like, spring locked. People are like, it's not good enough, it wasn't gory enough. I don't know. I thought it was effective. I really liked the shots of, like, you seeing the spring locks, like, hitting him in the ribs. And then, like, people were like, the I always come back was rushed. And I was like, he's dying? What do you mean it's rushed? He's trying to make his dramatic villain monologue and put his helmet back on. What do you mean it's rushed? But, like, when he gets dragged away, I was like, oh, that was cool.
It also, like, I got the vibe that, like, he's trying to look like it's not affecting him, even though, like, he's obviously being stabbed.
Yes.
So, like, he's trying to remain, like, the stoic villain that he is. So, no, he's not going to be on the floor, like, writhing in pain because he wants to look untouchable. He wants to look like the big bad. So, I thought it was really well done.
I liked it, personally. I had no problems with it. I like, my only issue was, like, it could have been longer. It would have been, like, cool to see it more physical, like, more of his physical acting of being in pain. But, like, I'm not like, opposed to it. And then, like, the scene where he gets dragged away is, like, a mirror of the books, which is why people are like, oh, it's gonna, like, mirror the Silver Eyes trilogy, which I think would make sense if they're gonna do 3 movies. But yeah, I thought that was super cool. And then, like, when you see, like, the kid who's, like, meant to be, like, Golden Freddy, like, stood watching, like, him, like, still twitch, and then, like, before shutting the door, I was like, ew, like, it's just so nasty.
Yeah.
It's so nasty.
To mention, like, if you think about, like, okay, he's being stabbed by these spring locks.
Yeah.
You stab someone, one of the rules is don't take the knife out because then they bleed. So if he's getting impaled, you're not going to see a lot of blood or anything because those are literally also holding the blood in. He's not going to be gushing out blood. That's not how physics works.
Yeah. And he's also trying to preserve his energy. There's a whole thing. Like, he's just, like, sitting there and he's like, welcome to Springtrap. He's now a corpse. And he always comes back. And he means it. This man takes that literally. You cannot get rid of him. He just decides,
who comes back better, him or Palpatine in the Star Wars universe?
Honestly, Palpatine, because no one saw that coming.
Honestly, how did he even?
I don't know. He's like,
and truthfully, I think if Palpatine could put himself in AI, he would. I know AI is not in the Star Wars universe, but I think if he could, he would.
Well, there's, like, holograms.
Right, but it's not like
my headcanon would be that Palpatine would put himself into an AT-AT walker. or one of the other like bots, security bots. You know, the one with the one arm. I don't know what they're called. The black ones with the one arm, and they go pew pew pew. Yeah, I think that would be funny.
That's good.
Like, I don't know.
If anyone's listening out there, listen. Here's what you do. Okay, ready? Just write a Raylo fan fiction.
Oh god.
Write that into it, and then get it published.
We're like hitting the era where now I'm like, are we gonna get like FNAF fanfiction published? Like, is it gonna be mascot core? Like, what is happening?
I was standing in the book aisle with my sister yesterday at Target, and I was specifically, I looked to see if the Hurricane Wars was there, and I was like, because I was talking about a few different books, like, oh, I've heard this about this, I've heard this about this, and I was like, oh my gosh, is the Raylo fan fiction here? And she's like, what is Raylo fan fiction? And I was like, oh my gosh. So I had to explain to her, and then she's like, what? And then I was like, if I had a nickel for every time Raylo fan fiction was published into a real book, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
Yeah, it is. Listen, I'm not gonna yuck your yum, but it's sad when I think that I'm gonna get a good book. I'm not saying it's not a good book because I haven't read it, but like, it's sad when I think I'm gonna get an interesting plot, and then I read the plot and I'm like, it's Star Wars.
Yeah, it's also just, I've seen a fan art that came with, what was it, the fairy loot boxes?
Yes,
and I'm like, you didn't even try and disguise this. That is literally just Rey and Kylo Ren. So if you're gonna write it and you're gonna publish it, that's fine. But at least disguise it a little bit.
Try.
Or I guess maybe not. Maybe own it. I guess they're just owning it. They're like, yes, this is a published Raylo fan fiction. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, true. But like, I don't know. It just seems wild to me. I don't know how we managed to come to Star Wars. This is a very bizarre tangent.
We were talking about William Afton always coming back, and it reminded me of Palpatine. That's how we got there.
Yeah, he comes back a lot. So don't worry, Matthew Lillard would still be around. Actually, probably not, because we actually probably won't see him anymore. This is actually the perfect way to write him out, for Matthew Lillard not to have to be in the franchise anymore, because he will always be.
I heard though he signed. I think I heard he signed a 5-movie deal. I don't know how true that is,
so
but
that will. I imagine that will be his voice, and then also any flashbacks, because now he's in the suit. He's in the suit,
right?
Like, he's now attached to the suit. Like, so they don't need him to be in that suit. You know what I mean? You can have, like, it's when, like, in The Mandalorian, it's always Pedro Pascal being in the suit. Sometimes it's just a guy. But that means that we're probably going to get flashbacks, which I think would be interesting. I think childhood flashbacks of, like, him and, like, a young Vanessa, and, like, him and, like, Henry when they're starting out the business could be done. Like, there's a lot of potential there to be done. Especially because he's so unexplained. Like, if you don't know FNAF, you're like, why is he doing this? Like, there is no motive, there is no nothing, there is no backstory, even any description of who this man is, aside from the fact that he's Vanessa's dad who kills children. Like, there's nothing. There's nothing. Like, you absolutely have no idea. You don't even know that he made the animatronics, that he owns the business. Like, you know nothing of that, because they don't tell you it. So,
true.
There's a lot to be unfolded, for sure, which is fun.
Yes, I'm excited for future movies. I thought the movie was really good. It was predictable. Like, I saw every plot point coming, but that's okay. Yeah. It was fun. Yeah. It was a vibe. We love Josh Hutcherson. He was chef's kiss beautiful in it. So yeah, 10 out of 10.
Yep. I loved Golden Freddy getting into the taxi.
Yes. That was hilarious.
I was like, yeah, same. I mean, valid. It doesn't need to make sense. The guy can teleport. Who cares? I was like, I don't know. Also, I like how the taxi driver, like, who's obviously played by, like, another YouTuber who I'm not very familiar with, but, like, I also like how this taxi driver sees this, like, kid get in the taxi and is, like, unfazed.
Right?
I'm like,
where are you going?
I'm like, A, how is she paying for this? And B, like, why are you taking a child? Like,
right?
Hello? But, you know.
Again, the time period.
Yeah. Just 80s things, I guess.
Right.
Also, another thing that I have to say before we wrap up, right, is the whole, like, scene of, like, Garrett getting kidnapped, right? So the mum's going to get a towel. And I'm like, first of all, how far away is the towel from the bench that you sat at? Bizarre. Not that it matters. And then I'm like, how does no one hear or see said car in the woods?
True.
Not that it matters. but I think it's fun. Also, I like the idea. This sounds horrific. I need to rephrase that. I think it's interesting that my other theory that William, like that Mike's family is the Henry family, is because Garrett doesn't scream when he's taken.
Yeah,
not that you have to scream, but like I think that's
he was familiar enough to get in the car and not be alarmed. Because he doesn't even seem alarmed when Mike's watching him drive away. No, he's just looking at him. He's not like freaking out or anything.
Yeah, I thought
he's
that was
just like, look at my plane.
Obviously, it could just be a thing where like they've just decided, but it wouldn't make sense because if he does scream, then the adults would have been alerted. Like it feels like it was a very much silent abduction, which obviously can happen. Yeah. You can put your hand over a kid's mouth, but like, you know what I mean? I just feel like it was so fast and so silent that it's like.
But again, like even if you put your hand over the kid's mouth, like again, as Mike watches him drive away, he's not like pounding on the windows, like help me. He's just like, look at my plane.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the way that there's also an element of like maybe that's the way that Mike remembers it, and it's not fully accurate because it's through Dream Free. So there's a potential for it to be misremembered, and he's just remembering. Like I could see it being perceived as that's Garrett looking at Mike, being like, "Why didn't you do something? Like, why didn't you watch me?" Potentially, that's maybe fair. There was, but like if you're taking it literally, I think there's an argument to be made that there's a familiarity to be had between the characters, which I think would make sense. And also, I know people are saying like, oh, but if it is like Henry is Mike's dad, how does like Mike not know who William is? And I'm like, it's probably been a long time since they've like been together. Like there could be an argument that Henry's like, hey, my kids got kidnapped. I'm not working for the company. Like I'm gonna support my family, kind of thing. So like there could be, and if Mike's like I don't know 12 at this point, he probably wouldn't remember who William is if he isn't part of his dad's, like if he's not seeing him actively and he just like is his dad's co-worker.
He also like William has also aged. Maybe he didn't have facial hair when Mike was young. Maybe he didn't have the glasses. Like he could have looked different as well. Yeah, I think like those are things that definitely could be explained if they need to be explained. You know what I mean? Like I don't think there's inconsistencies there. I think they've left it open enough that it could happen or it could not happen and it wouldn't matter either way. And I'm like, go off. Just do what you want. I wonder how they're going to get Mike to be another security guard though. What's the motive this time?
The pay is better. Oh god. Well, I'm assuming it's going to be Abby says she wants to go back and see her friends.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Abby just goes, sneaks out of the house. It's like, takes a taxi.
Well,
goes to see
that is actually how potentially one of the kids dies in the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But by sneaking, there's like a scene where you see like the kid's window. It's like they're not in their room and there's like footprints outside the window. So it's like they were lured by an animatronic. So potentially that could be the way it still happens, that the animatronics still want, but they now have turned on Afton. But they still might want Abby though. We don't know. Yeah. But obviously they turned on Abby. But yeah, it's there. But after all, it's just a theory.
All right. If you saw the movie, let us know your thoughts. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What's the vibes? We want to hear from you.
What's your favorite animatronic? Not even from the movie, just in general. Because I'd be interested to know.
Ballora is my favorite.
I like Candy Kid. Actually, I like Trash and the Gang. I too would
be an also fair. I don't know all of them, so
there is like 700. It's not 700. That's a lot. Trash and the Gang is just a mop, a bucket, like just like cleaning equipment with googly eyes. I connect with that on a personal level. I just feel like it's so dumb. Like, why is that a thing?
That's fair.
Yeah, actually, Monty Gator's my favorite.
Okay, that's also fair.
He's awesome. Yeah. But, you know, I am Trash in the Gang, but my favourite's Monty Gator.
You know? Fair enough.
Oh, gotta do a what FNAF animatronic are you filter.
I just saw one today.
Ah, perfect.
So, we will post that.
Yay! Okay, that's it.
All right.
I'm done.
I think that's it. Bye!
Bye!
so much for listening. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. To stay connected with us, then follow us on social media, which are linked in the description. I've been Emily.
And I've been Scar.
Tune in next time for the best cottagecore podcast for the cottage horrors.